Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Freelance Futures, a summer program of learning and action for equitable conditions in culture. It is being delivered in partnership with Freelance Futures Consortia. My name is Andrew Watts. I am the Artistic Director and founder of Max Musician Artist Exchange. I am a 54-year-old white male with long brown hair, wearing glasses and a black shirt, talking to you from my basement of my house, which is the coolest place to be, given the temperatures today, from East London. Before we start, if you would like to sign your name into the comments and any information about yourselves, that would be grateful for us. Can you all be on mute unless you are contributing verbally? There will be a chance for us all to talk a little later on. Before we start, we need to outline some access and other important information. Number one, this session is being recorded and will be permanently available to view via our dedicated YouTube channel or via the website or community platform. Captioning. Today we have MyClearText providing live captioning. If you need to access this, please click the closed caption button. It is possible to access this as a full transcript or on the screen as captions. I'll just take a brief pause while those of you who need to activate the captioning can do that. Captions are being provided by Judith Milidi today. We're very happy to have her with us. Bsl Interpretation. Interpreters of Color Network are providing our Bsl interpretation today. We will ensure their image is pinned so that they can be seen at all times. And our interpreter today is Rachel Jones. Welcome, Rachel. This is her third visit today, doing sterling work. And lastly, the Code of Conduct. Freelance Futures is a call for collective learning and action to build equitable conditions for freelancers working in culture. It will take all our efforts to effect real change, so we welcome all your insights and experiences as independent practitioners and practitioners working within cultural organizations, unions, funding bodies, and in policy making. Given that we need all of us, this is a basic code of conduct for today. Please respect and value your contributors in this room. Be aware of your privilege, know when to make space and when to take space. Avoid overcomplicated language and explain technical terms should you use them. We are all at different stage of learning. Respect the person, challenge the idea. This is a relaxed environment. Feel free to access the event in any way that makes participating work for you. If possible, please start with your video option switched to welcome our speakers and contributors. If you have a question or a point to raise today, use the raise hand function in the reaction tool or type the word question in the chat function, and we will come to you as soon as we can. We will be using the chat function to help us with enabling some of the discussion today, and ask that it is used for that rather than for side conversations. We hope that this will assist in improving our access and inclusion in discussions for everyone at this event. So we're here to talk a little bit about education and what education is. And I wanted to share with something that I just looked up a couple of days ago when thinking about this, that it was Nelson Mandela who said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And it's kind of interesting that we are in this post-pandemic working out how it is that we can educate ourselves, whether we use traditional forms of education or whether we're coming at it from our own self-learning, unlocking our imagination, unlocking our curiosity. So I want to introduce my first panelist sharing this with me. Raymond, perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Ray, and tell us about your stance on education and where you come from.
Hi everyone, my name is Raymond. I'm a composer and jazz pianist, and I was born in Hong Kong originally, and I have lived in the UK since 1990. I didn't start off my career as a musician. I mostly at school I studied science subjects, and for university I did electrical and electronic engineering. As a result, I ended up working in IT for about 13 years. But it was during that time that I realized, actually before that, when I was studying engineering, I realized that I really want to be a musician, but I feel I was trapped in the kind of system or growing up being encouraged to study science. So I was basically mostly self-taught as a composer. So I kind of read up music and learn how to read score, and slowly doing it on the side when I was kind of trapped in the office, like 9 to 5 for about 13 years. And for me, education, I think coming from Hong Kong or from any kind of Asian country, I think education possibly means something slightly different. In those countries, I think education for me at the time was about getting a good grade and passing exams and pleasing your parents. And it has nothing to do with about learning things that actually I wanted to do. And looking back, most of the things I learned at school, I don't think I remember anything, because I think looking back, I just didn't have no interest in it whatsoever. It was being forced into doing it. It's about when I was about 35, when I was already kind of making my way as a composer. I was kind of in a crossroad. I realized that I could either carry on doing what I do in the office, make money, and then support my music as a part-time thing, or make the leap to spend most of all my time and energy into doing music and to just start afresh. And my partner was at the time was helping me to decide it. I think actually it was a very quick decision. I mean, there's no brainer. I realized I don't really want to spend the rest of my life trapped in the office being unhappy. So I took the plunge and went to Guildhall, applied for the doctorate program, which I got in. And I spent 3.5 years studying with the composer Julian Anderson. And that really kind of changed my life, I think, in a way that gave me more time and headspace to focusing to do things that really mattered to me, the things I really wanted to do. But I think people ask me, how did I even start in the first place? Because I came from a very technical background. I didn't really know any musicians at the time in my early 20s. But at the time, I had this image, which is a very interesting technique that I use to motivate myself, is I always create this vision of seeing myself in about 5 years or 10 years time, doing things that I wanted to do. I remember when I was about 23 and I just started working in IT, I had this vision of hearing myself having one of my pieces play on Radio 3. I think that was my motivation. I said that I'm going to do that when I was 30. And I set myself that goal. And then all the life decisions I make, about going on holiday, studying part-time, doing conducting, studying with people privately. I think every decision I make in life, it slowly points towards that image that I want to hear my music on Radio 3. And then kind of little things kind of all add up together, I think, that really make me do things to go towards that goal, and including all the things that I learned, all the education stuff, how do I teach myself, or kind of do courses that help me to go towards that goal. So that's pretty much my kind of educational background, really.
Thank you, Ray. Let's pass across to Marina.
Hello, everybody. My name's Marina. I am a white, middle-aged woman with long hair in a ponytail, a white t-shirt, lots of gold jewelry, and lots of red lipstick. It's really lovely to be here today online. I am, what am I? Well, I'm freelance, so that's something many of us have got in common. I'm freelance. I work in interim leadership roles, and I also work, I'm not going to call myself a consultant, because what I actually like doing is problem solving and creating new opportunities with organizations, but I haven't got a title for that. So that's a little bit about what I do. And what I'm interested in and why I'm here today is that I'm really interested in how we learn to be freelancers, and what does it mean, what do we need to learn to be successful freelancers, and how can organizations work successfully with freelancers? What do they need to learn to work with us? And I'm interested in the concept whether this is about formal or informal learning. I've been a freelancer for 8 years, and one of the things I think we have a challenge with is the term freelance. It comes from in the medieval times, I believe, which and a man who turned up on a horse with his lance, and he was free to fight for you if you paid for him. So I am not a man on a horse with a lance. I am a mum who's a sole trader, who is interested in ideas and who's skilled in many different things, but I am also, all I have is a legal identity as a freelancer, and that's the only thing we have in common as freelancers. We're all very, very different. We've all got different business models, we all work in different things, but we share this a quite romantic term, freelancer. And I'm interested because sometimes I think that holds us back, this term, in terms of being able to say, once you assume you're doing it, actually you should be assuming that you know what you're doing as a freelancer, how to be a freelancer. And I think there's a huge amount we need to learn as freelancers about how to run successfully a small business, which is what you are, how to look after ourselves, how to work with others in this amazing ecology that we operate in. So, and I want to think a couple of things I'm interested in talking about today is the concept of learning on the job, because there isn't a kind of formal, there's no Citizens Advice Bureau. Somebody mentioned this to me today. Where's the Citizens Advice Bureau for freelancers, for cultural freelancers? Yeah, it's here. It's here this week, but we're only here for 1 week only, folks. And so where is that? How do we learn the formal stuff, the technical stuff that we need to learn, but how do we also support ourselves? Also, we do a lot of learning on the job. When you're in an organization, people often know that you're learning in your job and they allow you that space to learn. But when you're a freelancer, you've got to turn up and be able to deliver. How honest are we able to be about, actually, at this moment, I think I know 80% of what I'm doing, but the rest of it is my curiosity and my concern that will drive me to learn the rest. So I think there's something interesting about learning as a freelancer and the honesty that you can have with those who employ you. Yeah, I'm interested in kind of how learning is also not just about the craft and doing the job itself, but also about the behaviours of how we work together in this amazing ecology. What do we expect of others who employ us, and what should they expect of us, and how much do we talk about that as freelancers? Where do we learn about that? How do we learn about contracts and expectations of how we work and when we'll be contacted? Anyway, I'm learning today. I'm really looking forward to learning from colleagues here and those who are online. So that's me. Thanks.
Thank you, Marina. That's really insightful. Great. Nicholas.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nicholas Daniel, Oboist, conductor. I run a music festival. I'm a teacher as well. I'm a 60-year-old white male. I'm wearing a flowery shirt and pearls, as always. I've got red glasses on, and I'm in my conservatory, which is in Cambridgeshire, and any hissing you hear in the background is either the cat or the A1. My education was an absolute failure in every respect. I wasn't allowed to do maths O-level because I was described as disruptive influence in the class. I did get a music A-level, but it was called practical music. I think that my actual education, well, learning to play the oboe took from when I was 10 until I left the Royal Academy. And then I would say that my education started. And that has been led through reading, through walking a mile in other people's shoes, particularly in the last 2 years, and by just trying to be as open-minded as I can, and also watching my own children's education, realizing how ghastly mine was. But I am a true believer in the university of life. And I was most interested in the pandemic to first of all, grateful to have the Max Musician and Artist Exchange Group, which was in some times it was the only thing that was in my diary in a whole week. And I made really, really good friends and strengthened existing friendships there. It's a wonderful group and it's really full of really interesting people. And I also noticed particularly with things like the drag community, how quickly they adapted to being able to do things online, Cameo, actually even card readings. One very good friend of mine in Los Angeles had a podcast, and then eventually was making any way that she was earning money was basically doing readings with playing cards online. Other friends worked in things like Reiki healing and discovered that it worked online. And I have two very close, very high profile musician friends who are Reiki healers now. And that's, for me, fascinating. So I would say that my interest is extremely broad in terms of education. I myself struggled to learn to make the oboe work with Zoom, and we've come limping into this new time, and the digital aspect of how we use it now and how we reintegrate it into live work and how we get audiences back is of great interest to me. But I'm really pleased to be here, and I really look forward to hearing you all speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. I just wanted to, if I can pick up on something Marina said, which is about this idea of titles. So the word education still scares me yes, just scares me. And the fact that we're always constantly, in a way, I suffer from a huge amount of imposter syndrome. So Max was born 2 years ago, and this amazing consortium of other organizations and people I've had conversations with over the last year when it's been planning this symposium, you think, I just can't do this. I shouldn't be listening. I shouldn't be in this conversation. But actually, you have to pluck up that courage to go, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. Even Google Docs, I now can do. And I can hardly switch on a kettle. So it's all of that thing. And it's, in a way, we are a freelancer, but we all have various different hats and various different things we do. I'm an opera singer, I teach singing. I am an artistic director of a company. I'm running an organization now. I'm working out how that does and how our interpersonal skills play that. But there is nothing, we don't need anything formal. As Marina was just saying, it's a little bit like trying to unlock your curiosity to find out what can you do. And I'm sure we have all examples of things that we've done certainly over the last 2 years to try and make the world a better place. Nicholas, you want to come in on me?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think what's been amazing for me is to see how you have grown into that role, and you're now you're very powerful in instigating things. I actually have a little exercise I would like to which was worked on me a while ago. I was asked to give a speech about portfolio careers ages ago, and they asked you to identify a number of things in your life that you'd actually earned money doing that were not your principal employment. So I would actually love all of you to spend 30 seconds thinking about things that you were not at all trained in. So I have some sort of weird music certificate from the Royal Academy. I don't even have any kind of degree, and I'm a professor. But so things that you didn't study, things that you're not trained in, that you have earned money. So in the next, let's say 15 seconds, I want you to think about maybe 3 things that you've done which earned you money. And then the question is, when you thought about those 3 things, how might you inform them better? How might you self-educate? How might you homeschool yourself in any of those 3 things to further enhance your portfolio career? Time's up.
Thank you. Marina, you want to come in on this? No? I think it's wondering where is the support networks? I mean, I spoke to somebody recently in one of the other symposiums about she was living in the country miles from anywhere, and where are your resources? I mean, Max is just about to launch something called Max Mentors. So perhaps actually the Citizens Advice Bureau is part of that, where it's artists talking to artists, looking for resources, trying to help with various different issues. So that'll be launched next week post this week. So have a little look at the Max website, and maybe we all need to start talking to each other. The great thing about being on Zoom is that I've had conversations with people I've never met, and it's a fascinating thing, and you're able to be open and say how you feel about things, and to actually trust that your own gut reaction, for that's the reason we all became a freelancer. And I've never had a job. I mean, in terms of I've never been as part of an institute. It's always been as a freelancer and trying to negotiate through that. And again, as I keep coming back to, the imposter syndrome is huge. Ray, give us something of your knowledge of that.
I think answering Nick's question, I did two things in my life that I wasn't trained for, but actually make money from. The first thing, which is closer to music, I was completely self-taught as a jazz pianist. And then I managed to get myself some gigs as I was still working in IT. I just put my name out there, and I walk into all the restaurants and say that, do you need a pianist? And then they give me a trial, and I managed to get some jobs. I think I wished I was being much more savvy about it to make a very nice name card, because I was still quite young. I didn't know how to promote myself. I think I just kind of write down my number on a piece of paper. If I knew, I'd possibly make a nice, kind of much more professional looking name card for it. And even earlier in my life, one thing that I did and actually make me money was doing a handmade greeting card. And I used to study design and art. I kind of cut out some, stick papers together, and almost like a cutout version of a greeting card. I make a bunch of them and just go from shop to shop to sell them. But that was back in the late 90s, and it was before internet, before Instagram. So I think it's a very different world. If I still do it now, I think I'll really promote it differently.
So I had to think about this, and I've realised I'm not trained to do anything that I do. So that's a bit of a worry, isn't it? I think I think if you start out on a creative journey, and then I ended up in arts management. I think that's how it started for me. I didn't kind of go into it via a kind of formal route into arts management. And so I think I could say things like researcher, fundraiser, community activist and organizer. None of these things were necessarily courses that I went on before I started doing them. So I've subsequently started, doing things, doing things where I needed them. But I shouldn't worry anybody I work with here, but I don't think I'm alone. I think many of us who kind of work into kind of either managing themselves or managing projects or managing organizations and leading organizations or going into these things don't necessarily come at that from a kind of formal training or education perspective. So, and that's why when you go into organizations and they're prepared to support you with training, how fantastic it is, but it isn't, you don't necessarily have that as a freelancer. So, yeah, I'm driven by curiosity, I suppose, which means that sometimes I will take things on, and I will be quite honest about, where I have more experience or not in things. But I suppose I've learned to have to throw my hat in the ring, because there'll be many others who will equally be as educated as me on the subject.
I guess that one of the things is that perhaps I should have added that those three things should be things that bring you joy. And I think there's always this balance in freelance between doing something that earns us the money that we need to live. And let's face it, right now, that's more than it's ever been with the cost of living, and things that actually give you joy. And hopefully those two things can create you can make a togetherness from them. But I have a feeling that if you find something that brings you joy, that you're likely to do it better. Therefore, you're likely to be more successful at it. But I think that sounds like a bit of a wishy-washy thing, but I do really believe it. And I think that in a way, something that I've been thinking about doing more is writing and maybe podcasting, because I was asked to do some of that in lockdown virtually, from home over Zoom and things. And I discovered that those aspects that I liked. And so, in fact, there's opportunities have come my way since that dreadful time, which kind of go in that direction. I'm quite interested to see how that goes, but they will definitely bring me joy. And I certainly haven't been self-taught as a podcaster. And if anybody, I once as a child wrote a thank you letter to the Queen because I got chickenpox when I was supposed to be singing the Maundy Thursday service, and I got a letter back from one of her people saying they couldn't read it.
Thank you. I'm kind of, with Marina, I'm kind of also curious. I mean, I have many hats, and some I'm trained to do. I'm trained to be an opera singer, and I do that. But actually, I'm actually not trained to teach, but I do that a lot because actually it's my time to enter a room with someone who is inquisitive and is curious about making a noise. And the phrase I use, which I'd like to apply to my own sort of freelance thing, is that every noise you make is acceptable. Some are more acceptable than others. And it's almost in a way that what we choose, our choices are what we listen to, what we feel is our happy-go-lucky career is part of that. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. We are throwing our hat into the ring. We are going, I can try that, I'll give it a go. I mean, I always like to think, if you'd excuse my language for a second, that I go on stage and I sing and there's a big button which says bullshit on it, and I press it and I go, let's hope no one sees through this, because you know you're only as good as the last gig, and you're forever being judged. But I think Nick makes a really valid point. It's about finding your happy spot, and we've all had to re-look and reinvent and sort of take a rather good look at ourselves to think, well, actually, what are the reasons I'm doing this for? Is it there's a burning desire inside of me to go and out and go, here I am, this is what I'm going to do. And actually then we have to look at what is our support networks. Where are, within an organization, as Marina said, we're very lucky that sometimes people say we'll give you some training, but 9 times out of 10 you're to present a service, or you're presenting your work or your art or your craft. And you know, one needs to find that sort of scaffolding to keep it all together. So I feel sometimes conversations like this are really important, because the network of being able to build an allyship, to talk to another person going, I'm having a terrible time, any thoughts on this? Well, have you thought about that? It's just one single little gem of an answer can actually make the world of difference. I'm kind of interested, it being halfway through this, to hear from other people, our listeners, to hear some stories from them. Has anyone got anything they want to share? Something, I've read some really interesting people life experience is often a better experience than qualifications. That's absolutely not, you're preaching to the choir there. It's absolutely right. And learning on the job and learning where you go. Anybody want to come in from the crowd, from the floor?
We've also got a question from Jess, which we could.
Let's have a look at that. Sorry, I missed that. How do we have conversations with others who are working for around pay? Marina, do you want to have a look at that first? Sorry.
Yeah, that's. I'm really pleased you asked that, Jess, because I don't think we talk about it enough. And it's another one of those things that you enter into the industry, and there are union rates, but I think we also have to remember that a lot of the union rates are the basic minimum, and there is often a discrepancy between where we are advertising basic minimum for many years against actually somebody who's got many years of experience, and they're still on basic minimum. So I think we must talk about pay more often. We really need to talk about pay now, because people are setting budgets for the next 3 years, and clearly everybody's cost of living is increasing, and energy crisis. They're using probably the same rates. So actually we must have conversation about pay, because we need to start talking realistically about how people are going to survive in this industry and how organizations can budget for freelancers. How do you do it? I mean, first of all, I talk a lot about rates of pay with other freelancers. So I think understanding what you do and understanding what your colleagues, what your peers are charging and where they get guidance. Because I don't think you should always respond to what is being advertised. I think being able to have a conversation about, well, that's what you're advertising, but is there any movement? Because I might have 10 years more experience than somebody else who's coming into this job. I can't necessarily, it's really tricky. If there was a particular example, I'd be able to say it, but I do think, I think what's been brilliant about, can I call it brilliant? But I think the pandemic has meant that organizations realize that they need to have these conversations too. So I think there is a much more open opportunity to have these conversations about rates of pay, and also talk not just about the rate of pay, but what was really included in that when projects expand. How do you manage that as well, in terms of the days that you're paid for versus actually what it's really taking. So I don't think it's just about rates of pay. I think it's also about managing and how we manage our contracts with one another.
If I might just add, there's also what makes that more difficult, Marina, is freelance paranoia, which has long been a real thing. And that means that there's a slight suspicion of other people, whether they're telling you the truth when they tell you what they're earning for something, or, I mean, it's really hard. But I think we do need to start a new spirit of openness with this. So I think it's a good chance, a good time to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, another question from the chat. It's all about resources, isn't it? How do we access pay for educational and learning opportunities? There is only so much we can do by ourselves. It comes back to needing pay levels that make training accessible for people who don't have employers covering costs from their training budgets. Any thoughts on that? Marina?
I just did a session today, and I've just been with 70 amazing people from Brighton, the cultural workforce, and we've come together today to talk about planning for the future. And this came up, and one of the things we talked about was organisations opening up their training to freelancers. You know, if you're setting up a training course for your staff, how many freelancers can you include in that as well? Also, collectively, can freelancers come together to collectively buy training, or at least work with organisations to buy training? Because there's a lot on you to do as a freelancer. You've got to do everything. So yeah, looking at opportunities to train together and sharing resources from organisations who are already organising training. That's just a couple of thoughts.
I think there has also been there's a sort of small ripple of organisations being much more open to being asked to offer help, because they realise that we as freelancers have had a terrible time. And in fact, quite a few of the organisations have kept their salaries and kept their leads and the gatekeepers, etc. And we get into that argument. So I think it's never hurt to actually ask for some help, and ask for some, if it's funding opportunities, they are available. They're hard to get out of organizations, but if you hit the nail on the head, you might get the right organization. Another question is, do you think there are enough strategies to get those who need experience in the room? For example, I always ask when I'm in rehearsal if I can offer a spot to a younger student interested in movement, for example. There are schemes been set up, things like Barbara Hannigan's Momentum scheme, where you bring in a younger artist to work alongside various older artists. Nick, you did your birthday concert at the Wigmore Hall and had more oboes than anyone needs to have in a concert. And that it was, you know, giving these opportunities to young people and championing what they have to say and what they want to say. But
well, actually,
that's very
the Momentum,
between.
Exactly. No, well, Momentum now is a very good example of it, but it was set up with an enormous prize from Canadian government to Barbara, who's a Canadian artist. And so how it works, just out of interest, is that, and I used exclusively people from less heard and less visible groups. So I tried to make it as many Black women as I could find who I thought really needed the support of being on stage. And how it works is that the Momentum now pay a third of their fee. The artist, me, pays a third, and the organization pays a third. So it's quite complicated to organize, and organizations are not, even big ones, are not particularly interested in it. They need it really harassing to take a part in it. So, but it is a very good example. I think there could be other schemes similar, where, like side by side, like apprenticeship a little bit. I've often thought this about music, that sort of having someone, it used to happen in the 18th century that because you need safe, it has to be safe, but the thing is people would travel with artists to follow them and see what was going on. We have done a little of that, and it's been very successful. The Momentum Now scheme is brilliant, but I did find it unwieldy in the end a little bit. I'm still using it.
Thank you.
Raymond's got.
Ray.
Just a little thing that following Nick. Recently, I saw the show done by Maria Freeman at the Chocolate Factory. And what she did was amazing. She said to her, this is, even though the show is under her name, she remembered how difficult it was when she started. So for the show, for the whole run, she rotates a student from the academy so that they can do the show for the whole week, and so that they get almost like an apprenticeship. So they can actually get to do things in the West End to see how it works, and then also good for them on the CV. I think it's quite similar to what Nick was trying to say. It's almost like an apprenticeship, almost like a mentorship, really.
I wonder also, when we talk about people with less experience, it's not always about younger people, but actually about how we, and some of the barriers are about the language we use in terms of opportunities and the level of experience we expect, when actually people might have a huge amount of experience in an area where they've got transferable skills. But I think, it is often a barrier. We're talking about education. Isn't some of the language in this industry something you have to educate yourself about? And I think that sort of bothers me, because it's not inclusive. And it can put many people off from kind of coming into spaces because of the language we're using. So there's a question on here from Devo that was about, and I'm interested to hear from my colleagues here about this, because I'm not sure I've got the answer here about, she's launched herself, or they've launched themselves as an arts practitioner, and how do you set yourself a work routine and organize yourself? I'm going to say that actually I realized I'm not very good with a work routine, and that I needed to understand that I understand there are certain times of the day where I'm better working than others. So that was helpful, rather than trying to work all hours of the day. Understanding when I'm better at working and not punishing myself for that was quite helpful. But I'm also not very good with a routine, so I'm afraid I can't help necessarily with what my routine is.
I think it differs from everyone. I mean, I am similar to you, Marina. I think one of the skills I've learned over the last 2 years is to juggle. I have 2 children, a husband and a dogs, and you sort of juggle and you go, I'll do some work now. And then you sit at the desk and go, I've achieved nothing. And I think we have to always be able to give ourselves a little pat on the back for actually just surviving. And I think, Devo, the idea that, there's no tried and tested routine for us as adults. I mean, I have kids who have a very sort of slightly strict routine. My husband and I sort of fit in amongst that. And I'm not sure whether there is. I'd love to say, I get up in the morning, I'll sing a bit, and then I'll do something else and have another sing. No, life sort of gets in the way. And it is difficult to, the word that keeps coming up throughout some of these questions is the word motivation. It's very difficult sometimes. It has been over the pandemic to feel that there is a reason to get up. As like Nicholas was saying, these Max things was a reason to get up. It was something to do. But at the same time, I was driving my husband to work because he's an intensivist in intensive care, and he was on the front line of COVID, as well as managing expectations of 2 children who were not quite sure why they were not at school with their friends and everything else. So there's no motivation trying to do it. You're not alone. We all struggle with, trying to wing it at the last minute, or we think, I'll prepare that. I'll spend a lot of time on that project, and it just doesn't happen. So I think the whole idea is just take a deep breath and just begin and see where it ends up. But don't give yourself a hard time for just saying, well, I didn't do 10 hours there today. Or it's like Ray when he writes, if he sets himself a target, I don't think some days he'll do more, some days he'll do less, Ray.
I think that for me, I used to work in an office, so there was a routine. And then since I became freelance, it was so much difficult. And the only thing that saved my day, it sounds quite vague, I actually set my gym routine or running routine as the baseline. So I need to go to the gym at a certain time of the day, everything kind of built all around that. Or I need to go for a run, go for a swim, things that I enjoy doing. And then those things that will have to happen in the day. And then how do I build my work around that? it sounds quite childish, but it kind of worked for me. Or something that, I'm going to make a nice dinner at 7 o'clock. So it's almost like a reward. So I need to do all the work before I can have a nice dinner. So that it worked for me anyway. So, and I actually saw a very interesting conversation going on in the chat. It's about, is Paula Blair talking about the age limit, isn't it? There was, yeah. I think it's always the case that I'm a late starter, and I have quite a strong view about this, because I really started off as a composer in the late 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, and in the classical music world, people love the kind of protege and young people that, oh, this so and so made it in the early 20s, and I always think, what about me? And then there were so many opportunities, a scheme in the past. They always had the age limit to 29, 30, 35. And I was like, I missed them all because I only just starting it. I wasn't even kind of, I haven't finished a single piece, but I'm 30. It was so hard. And recently I'm actually doing this, I'm on a judging panel for a composition competition. It's very interesting that I saw the motivation. They said that we want to encourage Black, South Asians, minority to come forward, and then they set the age limit at 35. So I go back to them and say that, well, let me just tell you a story. A lot of us, which is from a non-white background, we don't know anything about classical music until much later on in life. So we don't start until so much later. So you encourage those kind of composer from that kind of background, but because of the education or the kind of cultural background, they can't start early. So the whole thing kind of pushed backward. And then you set an age limit, which is quite low at 35. You actually put a filter on to filter out all the potential candidates. And it's in a way that I feel is kind of, it's in a way that they think in a very kind of white mentality, in a way that, you think that people grew up in classical music, went to school, learned about classical music. I didn't really do that. I don't have that kind of background. And so a lot of, musicians, composers that possibly don't come from that kind of experience. And I think there are lots of kind of opportunity. They set the age limit quite unrealistic and quite unfair. It's a very kind of very weird ageism going on there, I think. And I always speak up about it because, I mean, I can only speak of what my experience. I felt that, through my 20s and 30s, I was being excluded from it because they all told me I was too old. So,
Nicholas.
Yes, I hear you, Ray. And actually, the two competitions that I was in charge of founding and, well, partly running and judging, we got rid of all age limits. And we had a young section for it for under 19s, which was actually really interesting. But we didn't have an age limit, which is the right thing. But actually, I just wanted to say one thing I'm seeing and thinking and agreeing with is that you need stamina to be freelance, because you will get so many rejections and you'll get so many times. Sorry, it was just shutting the blinds because I was starting to really sweat like a sauna from the sun. You will get a lot of rejection, so you have to stay strong. And you have to stay resilient and robust. And it is. And somebody said earlier, it's exhausting. It is exhausting. I totally agree. And retraining and trying to think how you're going to fund it is also doing, not retraining, but extending the learning. Maybe that's the best way to say. Yeah. So, but I do think that we've all, partly because of social media, I think we've learned. I mean, I think it's an evil in many ways and a good in many other ways. But I think we all have learned that things like having an age limit for a composition competition actually inhibits a whole group of people you really want to encourage, exactly like Ray, and exactly like people like a certain composer who was pointed to me by James Macmillan, didn't start writing till he was 30, who's a security guard in nocturnal security guard in a shopping centre in Paisley, and that, you know, you're just inhibiting all sorts of creativity if you put those. So anybody who's in those kind of positions, like I'm privileged to be in the position to have the choice to the chance to suggest that. We all have to stay very open radar about that. So freelancers do often get put in the position, like you said yourself, Ray, you're now judging a competition. And so we also have to be aware of like where we came from and how we can affect things in the right way.
Totally. Marina.
Oh, I've got so much to say about resilience and everything about surviving as a freelancer and well-being. I think what was really interesting during the pandemic is that we could be honest about how tough it was. And one of the challenges when you're a freelancer is that you don't want other people to doubt you. So you have to give an air of resilience when actually things may be very tough. So I like to think there are a number of things that we could do. I always say to people who are entering into freelance, like they're taking on their first chief exec role, that what's the scaffolding you're putting in place to support yourself as a freelancer, whether that's you could put some money aside to have a coach, whether that's you need to have gym membership. What are the things that will help you be a freelancer and support you? Who is your support network at this time? I also think there's something about how we oh, Jess, I'm loving your comments. Thank you. I am going to go for it. We've got, you must go for it. You need to tell us too, to give us more. I think there's also something about what in talking about well-being, there is also something that's come through, hasn't there, the pandemic, about organizations and our relationships with them. And I think we should keep having these conversations. We had a conversation today in Brighton about a sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call it code of practice. Is it a manifesto? It's a way of working with one another. We want to talk about the behaviors we can expect of one another as freelancers to organizations and organizations to freelancers. Something we can sign up to collectively, because it helps your well-being to know that you're going to get paid within a certain period of time. It's a huge responsibility carrying the idea of having to earn your own living all of the time, and you may also be carrying that of your family as well. So there's a lot of responsibility that we don't talk about. We need to keep talking. We need to, I hope we can still be honest, but I also hope we can use this moment to talk honestly with organizations and look at frameworks that help well-being of freelancers, because the well-being helps support the resilience as well.
I think one of the things that I convinced myself that one of the reasons I stayed in IT for 13 years is that I think I was biding my time in a way that I make sure that financially I was secure. I you know, it's kind of just fulfill the basic things about, you know, have a roof, you know, I can eat, and then so much so that mentally I was actually stable and healthy enough to kind of go for things that I wanted to do. Because I mean, you can't be thick-skinned if you're hungry. I think it's quite important.
That's absolutely true, Ray. I mean, the fact is that, you know, we are talking about education, and we're talking about the sort of / survival, because we need to survive in a cost of living crisis. And, you know, those of us who are fortunate enough to be able to run a car are going, I think I'll just walk because it's too expensive to do. And I do think that we had an interesting conversation before we all came on to this Zoom about, you know, the Instagram and projecting yourself. And that's, as Rachel, our Bsl interpreter, said, that's a full-time job in itself. So if you're doing that, when do you actually get the chance to go, well, actually, I want to try and be creative, I want to do something? And it just feels that there are lots of things that we should be demanding of the people we are working for, and certainly chasing the money is one thing we shouldn't ever have to do. That should be a given. There should be a process where the money turns up into our bank account without us having to write another 12 letters saying, I'm still owed money from 3 years ago from an opera house in Rome, and I'm trying to get the money. And it'll go, you know, oh, well, you're okay though. No, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. I can't feed my family, but etc. etc. It's a tragedy and that sort of thing. Nicholas.
Well, I think the reality is that one of the problems that one's seeing now is literally fuel or food, and the autumn is going to be very telling in that, and it's deeply disturbing. And seeing, I was talking to an Uber driver yesterday who gives his kids piano lessons outside school, and it was interesting because I was with my daughter and her girlfriend in the car, and my daughter's girlfriend is black and this Uber driver was black, and like they were both absolutely saying that music lessons was a complete priority for them both when they were young, with a brilliant parent driving all that. But I wonder, honestly, if there's these awful choices going to have to be made, we're going to lose so much. So in a way, we've just got to be, we've just got to be strong. I think that's the thing. We've got to, resilient as fuck, like somebody wonderful said on the chat, and make your own door. I very much enjoyed that. We're going to make our own doors. That's fabulous. So like I'm saying, it's a question of balancing one's sort of fear of freelance and of striking out and doing something that might bring you more joy, and actually the fear of not actually earning enough money.
I just want to say that the thing about coming up, we all know it's really difficult. So how are we going to budget? Does everybody budget? Do people budget? I mean, do people know how to budget for themselves? I think this, there's a lot of but a great friend of mine who, her take on it is, well, I've always been able to manage to kind of keep going and get by. I've never had to budget. But I think when the circumstances are changing as quickly as they are, being able to see that you've got a problem coming down the line is really important. I'm not sure that we're supporting each other, the freelance sector, with that type of knowledge and information at the moment. And I feel like it's quite urgent. I think I noticed that Jess also had something to say, who was in our room.
Jess, do you want to unmute yourself and talk to us? Is that putting you on the spot?
No, I'm happy to. I hope you don't mind, and I hope it's okay. Hello, everyone. I've been to a few of these sessions. I think they're amazing. I wanted to talk because, so I'm mixed race, I'm half Filipino, I'm half British, I'm from a working class background, and I'm bisexual. And I recently left full-time work, I won't name names, for an organisation. It was a museum. And I really didn't want to be a freelancer, because where I'm at in my life, I'm 34. I'd like to buy a house. I can't afford to do that. I'd like to have kids, but I can't afford to do that either. And I just thought I wanted to add to the conversation, I was looking for jobs, applying for jobs, wanting to do the right thing by me, and trying to find space and time to really question what it is I want to do. And throughout my career, when you asked us, Nicholas, to think about things that we've always done, I've sort of always worked in hospitality, and I think quite a lot of creatives find themselves in those sorts of roles. And so that is what I'm kind of thinking about now. But I guess I just wanted to speak up because actually the first session I went to, I think, was on Monday evening with two brilliant artists who were facilitating a session kind of about tools for freelancers. And it was so useful, and it really spoke to me in that moment of being like, you know what, I am absolutely going to go for this. And I have had a very much portfolio career, and I've done lots of side hustles. And right now, the things that I'm going to do to survive is working in a deli, is doing shifts, is doing consultancy, is, doing whatever comes my way so that I have time for my practice. And I just kind of wanted to share that in the room. And that was it.
Thank you, Jess.
It's wonderful to hear you, Jess. And actually, you mentioned something there, if you don't mind me coming in, Andrew. My husband is a mortgage advisor, and the reality of freelancers getting mortgages after having freelance payouts, or even having been on furlough, is very, very difficult right now. So he would say keep saving and try and keep some regular, keep your accounts regularly. But I mean, he doesn't really believe in that there's a difference between a salary and self-employed, because he doesn't do anything ever illegal. He's really scrupulous, but he tries to make it look like the same kind of thing. We just need so many more months of accounts as a freelancer. So I hear you about housing.
I like the comment about the car insurance. Yeah, I've never said I'm an opera singer. I just said I'm a music teacher. It's the best way. You teach something, or you just say the word freelance means, or musician means that we're throwing televisions out of the hotel rooms. Marina?
No, charity worker, always for insurance. Yeah, always.
That's a really good tip. Hooray. That's me sorted. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everybody and folks here, it is almost 6:30. Can I thank Marina, Raymond and Nicholas and all of you for participating in this conversation. I hope you found it useful. I have going away to write lots of notes and learn lots of things. Let's all keep learning, let's keep challenging, and let's just make this sector the best it can possibly be. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you at the next freelance. Raymond, come in and to me.
One final thought. I think everything takes time. I mean, you just have to be patient, and then you have to. I think I suppose I'm a Victorian. I'm very stubborn. I just once I believe it's something I need to do and something I have to do, I stick with it. I will find any way possible to achieve that. You know, it usually takes time. I think eventually, once you actually believe this, like what I said before, I kind of see myself doing certain things in 5 years, and I will make it happen. It's never easy. I mean, I had so much rejections. I had to take a project that was almost killed me. You know, writing an opera for Andrew. My God, I mean, writing for him is painful. But that experience, it was difficult because I got a commission very late, and I have to write this opera, and I knew that it's going to give me a big break. But I have a job. I have to keep a job like 96, and I have to write the opera in 9 months. So I literally, for about 9 to 10 months, I slept about 2 hours a day. And then that really kind of stopped me. I had complete burnt out, and I didn't write music for about 3 years after that. But, you know, I just realized that, you know, it was a sacrifice I need to make so that I can achieve certain things. And it took time, and I made a certain kind of sacrifice, but at the end, I think it was worth it. But I mean, I just convinced myself that I wanted bad enough to make the sacrifice. I think that was my experience from it.
And I think the final note is the sacrifice is real, but the rewards can be extraordinary. Good luck, everyone. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.